Hello, my name is Noah Marlier. I am the Montgomery County Prothonotary. The Montgomery County Prothonotary's office is where a resident would file a legal paper with the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. It's also where those legal papers are archived. And I'm here today, and so grateful to be here today with a number of leaders throughout our county to talk about a really important issue, frankly, a looming crisis. So the global pandemic and the economic crisis that we are in has created a situation where we may very well be seeing in the coming months mass amount of evictions and mass homelessness after people are evicted from their homes. Some have stated, some numbers I've seen, that 40 million Americans will face evictions over the coming months. 43% of renters, so over 4 out of every 10 renter households, may be facing evictions in the coming months. And right here in Montgomery County, it could very well be an issue. 23 to 47,000 households are at risk for evictions. So what's changed recently in the last few weeks that kind of brought about the need for a forum like we're holding to provide people with information is that Governor Wolf had a moratorium in place on the evictions here in the state during the pandemic that expired at the end of August. Now, a federal government a moratorium by the federal government via the CDC was put in place in early September and is to last through December. However, there's a few issues with that moratorium that I believe, and I think many believe, will still cause evictions to take place at a more rapid rate. Number one, that moratorium, the federal moratorium, only covers very specific circumstances, not all evictions. Also, tenants need to meet certain requirements, including proving a certain salary, that they're below a certain salary. They have to provide a declaration to their landlord in order to participate and not be evicted. They need to prove that they must have made their best efforts to obtain government assistance for rent. And they need to show that they're unable to pay their rent due to lost income. Those tenants also need to show that they made their best efforts to make timely payments, that the eviction would render them homeless or in a house where there's close quarters with others. And importantly, that moratorium does not relieve the tenant of the requirement to pay rent during the time period. And that's very challenging for many folks today who have lost their jobs, who are just unable to pay their rent. I think a quote from a Wake Forest law professor, Emily Benfer, really encapsulates this issue. She said, without the eviction moratorium, quote, "We're not only risking widespread eviction and homelessness, we are guaranteeing negative health outcomes, greater unemployment, education decline, and long-term harm for renters, property owners, and communities." This issue is going to hit a lot of people very, very hard. But I think this issue, and many think this issue, is going to hit disproportionately people of color. 80% of folks that are going to face evictions nationwide are people of color. And I think this issue is just so important to talk about. And I'm so grateful that we have such wonderful speakers on today for this forum. Our first speaker is the chairperson of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners, Dr. Valerie R. Cush. For over 7 months now, she has led the charge in the county to combat the impact of the COVID pandemic, and she has made the issue of renters assistance a focal point in those efforts. So thank you very much, Dr. R. Cush, for being on.
I want to thank our county prothonotary for pulling together this wonderful panel, and hopefully it will give the residents of Montgomery County some much needed information. Keeping individuals and families in their homes and preventing homelessness is critical to the health and safety of Montgomery County households, and is also going to be a major contributing factor in the recovery from the impacts of COVID-19. Due to job loss or a health crisis caused by COVID-19, many Montgomery County households are experiencing housing instability for the first time in their lives. Thus, Montgomery County has increased our efforts to provide relief. I'm excited to share with you a program that Your Way Home, Montgomery County's public-private partnership to end and prevent homelessness, has been working on to help stabilize working and low-income households through new and innovative resources, such as the Your Way Home Emergency Rent and Utility Coalition. This program launched on September the 8th and aims to provide $6 million in rental and utility relief to households impacted by COVID-19. Up to $1,500 per month is available in assistance for rental arrears and/or utility arrears dating back to March the 1st, with a maximum of 6 months worth of arrears being awarded. Thus, a household can receive up to $9,000 in rental or utility assistance to keep them safe and healthy in their homes. Households must live in Montgomery County, must be making less than 100% of the area median income, have utility or rental arrearages, and have experienced a hardship in the household due to COVID-19. That hardship could be a job loss. It could be having to leave a job to care for a sick family member. So there is quite a bit of flexibility in this program. The program will run through the end of December. This program is being administered by 4 regional Your Way Home nonprofit partner agencies. They are Aclamo, CADCOM, Manna on Main Street, and the Pottstown Cluster of Religious Communities. Households in need of this program can access it by contacting Your Way Home by simply dialing 211 from any phone, texting the household zip code to 898-211, or by contacting one of the aforementioned participating agencies directly. And hopefully you can see the flyer that we've got up showing the information about this program. Now I have a second program that I want to share with you. Your Way Home has also expanded its program to support those who are at increased risk of eviction due to the impacts of the pandemic. This is a pre-existing program called the Eviction Prevention and Intervention Coalition, known as EPIC. It offers virtual landlord-tenant mediation. The program has been running for about 2 years in one district court in Montgomery County, but it has now expanded to 7 of our magisterial district courts. If a household is provided notice of eviction and scheduled to have their hearing in one of these 7 participating jurisdictions within the county, EPIC will provide no-cost pretrial legal consultation, financial assistance of up to 6 months worth of rental arrearages, and social services to prevent the eviction from moving forward. The EPIC program has seen an 85% success rate in preventing evictions since it launched back in 2018. So this is why the county is in full support of the recent expansion. The expansion targets neighborhoods and courts who see the highest rates of landlord-tenant hearings in Montgomery County. More information about both of these programs can be found by visiting www.yourwayhome.org. That's www.yourwayhome.org. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arkush, for everything you're doing at the county level. The residents of Montgomery County, I'm sure, are very grateful. I also now want to introduce the president of the Montgomery County Special Court Judges Association, District Judge Kate McGill. She's been a district judge for nearly 10 years now, I believe. And just to be clear for those viewing this, she cannot offer legal advice. She is a judge, but she's here on this in this forum, on this call, to provide an overview of the landlord-tenant process and kind of the procedures in her courtroom. So Judge McGill, thank you.
Thank you, Noah, and thanks for having me on this wonderful panel with such a knowledgeable group of people to talk about an issue that is really important to all of us. And as Noah mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about the procedure, particularly for those who may have not gone through this before, just to kind of give you an overview. So the magisterial district courts are our local courts all around the county, and we are the community courts, and we're meant to be convenient and accessible for the people in this county. Some people who come to our courts choose to hire a lawyer, and many do not. And either way is completely fine. I just want to say that up front. So with a landlord-tenant case, typically the process looks like this. The landlord files a document called a complaint at the magisterial district court. The complaint has to be filed in the magisterial district where the property is located. Through the complaint, the landlord is frequently asking for two things: possession of the property back from the tenant, or they're seeking past due rent. Sometimes they're asking for both of these things at the same time, and sometimes they're asking for a few other things as well. Once the landlord files the complaint, a hearing date is set 7 to 15 days from the date the complaint is filed. Now, the tenant gets notice of the hearing, typically by a constable and by mail. They get notice that the complaint has been filed and that the case has an upcoming court date. If you ever receive such a notice, it's important not to ignore it. Some people will think, oh, I have work, I have another obligation, I have something else going on. But if you have a conflict with the court date, it's important to reach out to the court immediately and let them know, because each court will consider your request for a change of date on an individual basis, and the court may change the date for you. They might not, but they may. But if you don't contact the court and you don't show up for court, and the court knows that you've received notice of the hearing, the court may choose to move forward on the case even without you there, and the landlord could be awarded possession of the property and past due rent without your appearance at court. So please, please, please don't ignore those notices, and contact the court if you have a conflict with the date. Now, before the hearing, a tenant may also choose to file what's called a cross complaint, and simply all that means is it's a claim against the landlord that arises out of the occupancy of the premises. At the hearing, the landlord is required to present evidence in order to prove their complaint and show why they should be awarded what it is they're asking for. If the court finds that the complaint has been proven, the judge will then award a judgment that the property be delivered to the landlord, or that past due rent be paid to the landlord, or sometimes both of those things. If the tenant then wishes to appeal the decision for possession, the tenant has 10 days from the date of the judgment to do that. And that appeal takes place at the Prothonotary's office, and Mr. Marlier can tell you a little bit about that and that process. But if no appeal has been received at the Prothonotary's office within that 10 days, then the landlord may then choose to move forward with the eviction by filing with the magisterial district court what's called a request for an order of possession of the property. And then the court would issue the order of possession. And the order for possession is delivered by the constable, and it gives the tenant then 10 days from the date of the order to move out of the home or to be evicted. So that's really an overview of the process. And I know that there is, if you get one of these notices and you're looking for some additional help, you certainly could contact a lawyer. I know on the Prothonotary's website, there's information about Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania, and they can be wonderful. But certainly, if you feel that you would wish to have somebody appear with you in court, certainly take an opportunity to do that. Okay.
Judge McGill, thank you so much for everything you do and for being on our call today. As Judge McGill mentioned, the appeal from the district judge, and there are different terms for a district judge. I just want to be clear so that the people watching understand. Some people call district judges, district justices, local judge, DJs. So that's all the same level of court that we're talking about. But when someone is evicted in that level of court, as Judge McGill said, they could appeal that eviction to my office, the office of the Prothonotary. That's one of the kind of filings that is filed in my office. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that process. Judge McGill mentioned that for residential evictions, there is a 10-day appeal period where someone has 10 days, and it's a real tight window to appeal your eviction after a district judge rules to do that. So you need to be aware of that tight window of 10 days. Also, one of the very important thing to remember, with the pandemic, along with the pandemic, came a courthouse emergency. The Court of Common Pleas in Norristown has been in an emergency for the last number of months, meaning some services are not happening and only certain people are let into the courthouse. And that's changing sometimes by the day. So what I would want to emphasize to everyone watching is to contact my office to know exactly how to appeal your eviction. You can do that by visiting www.montcopa.org/prothy. That's montcopa.org/prothy. You could also call my office to find out about the process and to learn more at 610-278-3361. And someone can talk you through, one of my clerks can talk you through submitting the paperwork and the payment and what that process is like. A few very important things to remember. The judgment that you're appealing must be from a Montgomery County district judge, like Judge McGill or another one of the district judges here in the county. And the tenant must include a copy of the district judge's decision with that appeal. A couple other very important points to remember. The filing fee is $294.50. And at the time of the appeal, you will have to pay the lesser amount of either 3 months rent or the current arrears as stated on the district judge's decision. And it must be paid with cash, money order, or a certified bank check at the time of the filing of the appeal. And additionally, the rent will be due to my office every 30 days and kept in escrow. However, and this is so important, there is financial assistance in the form of what's called an IFP, and it could be available for families with low incomes. So I would encourage everyone to apply for an IFP when they apply for the appeal, when you come to my office or call my office. And if an IFP is granted, the filing fee that I discussed a moment ago is waived. The defendant does not have to pay 3 months rent or the arrears. And the defendant will only have to pay, or the tenant will only have to pay 1/3 of the current month's rent and then 2/3 20 days later. So it really could be financially beneficial to a renter who's appealing to apply for that IFP. As I stated earlier, this issue regarding renters and evictions is going to impact people of color in the county disproportionately. And I am so honored to have two members of the community that are really advocates for their community. And I wanted to have them on this forum to talk about how this issue is impacting their community specifically. So we have the president of the NAACP Mainline branch, Diana Robertson, and the political action chair of the NAACP Cheltenham branch, Eddie Graham, to discuss the impacts of the crisis in their communities. Mrs. Robertson, would you like to go first?
Sorry. Thank you, Noah, for having me as part of this panel. And listening to the information that was just provided is very good information that most people, I'd be willing to bet, doesn't know. Within the NAACP mainline branch, for Montgomery County, we represent Lower Marion and Upper Marion townships. And one of our main focuses is to provide information, because what we have found in a lot of different categories, that's what hinders a lot of people in being able to get the resources that they need for a lot of situations. We do have a housing committee, and the chair is pretty good with keeping up with things, and we're working really hard to make sure that that information is disseminated throughout the different counties, townships, so that folks would understand they do have options. Psychologically, what has been going on with folks who have lost their jobs, who are only on unemployment, which is only a partial part of what they were making before, have children, and choosing between paying their rent or mortgage, feeding their children, medications. All of these are life sustaining things that they're having to make some hardcore choices with. School is back now, and so now trying to make sure that the children are have what they need for school. So, in order for them to at least know that they have options in certain areas, the information that has been provided, we're going to make sure that we find a way to get that information out to people. Because very often when folks get frustrated or just kind of lose hope, they don't seek out the options that they may have. So they just kind of let things fall where they may, which is never going to be good for anybody. I also want to let the listeners know that for anybody who just doesn't either have the ability to find resources, that they can contact the mainline branch NAACP, and at the very least we will try to provide them resources. And if going to the court they need someone to go with them, just to feel better about the process and all of that, we are willing to do that as well. Obviously we cannot provide legal counsel, but we are willing to walk through the process with individuals just to help them feel here's a real possibility of what your options are, things that could be waived, and at least extend the process, extend some time, give them some time in order to work things out. And so with our branch, that's one of our prime responsibilities, and we reach out to the churches, interfaith communities, other organizations that we partner with to make sure that this information gets out. And so I'm going to make sure that all of the information that we're hearing today, that we provide that and get that out to reach the community at large.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Robertson. And Mr. Graham, can you speak on how this is impacting your community as well?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Noah. As you stated that, well, first of all, thank you for getting this very knowledgeable and formidable panel together in order to address this very needed issue here in Montgomery County that, as you stated earlier, especially disproportionately affects people of color here within Montgomery County, because experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity at any time is a struggle. But during a pandemic, survival is even more fragile. The already high numbers that will certainly surge during the virus due to job losses that places those that are already barely able to keep a roof over their head at an even higher risk of eviction and homelessness needs to be addressed. And African American and Latino households are at a greater risk of being evicted because they, on an average, pay more than 50% of their income on housing costs alone. And during the pandemic, these households are more at risk of missing rent payments and therefore being evicted. So we have to address having permanent, stable housing must be provided and connected to wraparound services and continuum of care that is flexible and tailored to each household needs, and that we have to have a way to pay protection for all of the people. And many of our local municipalities, they have to find a way to suspend emergency ordinances, rolling back housing and debt collection when addressing people of color. And I feel that the municipalities may be failing to prematurely lift or relax emergency ordinances that are addressing these needs. And because that really kind of deplorizes and undermines essential housing and homelessness services that are needed in our communities. It exacerbates evictions and foreclosures, and it it actually kind of enforces and expands homelessness to those communities of color. But we can't stop there. Once the immediate threat of COVID-19 has passed in Montgomery County, we have to provide I'd say long-term recovery periods, and earnestly strive to put Montgomery County healthcare first. And that is done by explicitly recognizing that housing is healthcare. A healthcare first approach necessitates that we have a housing first focus. So as Ms. Robinson so aptly stated, we need the NAACP branch, which services Springfield, Jenkintown, Plymouth, Meeting, King of Prussia. We will definitely be having those services and walking through those residents, and especially those residents of color that needs to have support in addressing this important need. So I think this is a very worthwhile initiative that the Prothonotary's office is putting forth, and hopefully that the NAACP can help partner with that Prothonotary's office in order to make sure that all people have access to these services, but especially those people of color that are disproportionately affected. Thank you.
Mr. Graham, thank you so much. This issue, one of the things while I was listening to both of you, one of the things I was thinking of is the fact that our homes are no longer just our homes. They're the schoolhouses for many communities here in Montgomery County. And our children are learning in the homes right now. If people lose their homes during a pandemic, it's that much worse. The children won't have places to go to school. It will be harder for those people to find a job. So it really is a very important issue. I want to thank Dr. Arkush, Commissioner Dr. Arkush. Thank you so much for being on, and for District Judge McGill and Ms. Robertson and Mr. Graham. Thank you so much for being a part of this forum. I appreciate your efforts and the information. And for all of you who are watching, thank you so much.